الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونتوب إليه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. Dear sisters, brothers, respected elders, as we get into these sacred months of the year of the Muslim calendar, obviously it becomes a little bit easier to pick a theme that resonates with the needs of the community. And one needs only to talk about the merits of a particular month into the sacred calendar and dig out the treasures that it holds within it and bring them back in a narrative that is directly relevant to our lives today. And Sha'ban will be no exception. As we are about to wrap him up, as it concludes, it offers within its last days still enough to reflect, ponder, and learn from as we take these things and develop them, inshallah ta'ala, into something that ends up being lessons so we can learn from them, and perhaps more importantly, invitations for actions so we can use them for the transformation to our better selves as we journey towards the satisfaction and the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's interesting that the gift of time that gets given to us has been really a very serious conundrum for some of the brightest minds that humanity has known. Time is one of these things that happens to be a theme of great contention amongst the people who know what they are talking about when they try to define it in one way or the other. I can think of names like Carlo Rovelli, the theoretical physicist, who's paid a full-time job to investigate the nature of time. What is this about? What's time? I mean, there is always a good answer, by the way, sort of the lazy answer. Well, time is time. And can we move on? Well, that's not how we're supposed to reflect and think about things that are serious. I can think of the work of Heidegger in terms of On Time and Being, one of perhaps the most seminal works in philosophy that tries to unpack the understanding of this nature of time, what we experience, this clock that goes around. The challenges of people who have described these clocks are things that are not exactly the same for all people. What you measure here is one thing, what somebody else measures there is another thing. As Einstein taught us, if you measure a clock at my feet and you measure a clock at my head, they in fact go at different rates. They're not exactly the same. It's a very tiny amount, but you can measure it with the precision of physics today. And what fascinates me about all of this is that it is all very important. It doesn't answer our fundamental question. So what's the nature of sacred time? What is time in the sacred? That's what we talk about when we come to this hall here every time, is to talk about the sacred understanding of a certain dimension. And my point today for the entire khutbah is to tease out that particular understanding in order to put it front and center of our conversation, the way we get informed, and hopefully also the way we will act upon it. I couldn't think of a better hadith that comes to us by way of Sahl ibn Sa'd al-Sa'idi, when the Prophet ﷺ has been reported to have said, إِذَا بَلَغَ الْعَبْدُ 60 سَنَةً, when someone reaches the age of 60 years of age, فَقَدْ أَعْذَرَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ فِي الْعُمُرِ, God up to that time, from birth to about 60 years of age, sort of God has kept a lenient eye on that person. They let them get away with certain things. By the way, the biological categorization of age is very different from the Islamic categorization of age. Sometimes they meet, such as, for example, bulugh, that's related to our biological clock. A taknif is related to our biological clock, but there are certain things that come completely desynchronized when it comes to something. Youth, in the Islamic calendar, you remain young until the age of 40. I know that somebody behaved like 5-year-olds when they get to 40, that's not what I'm saying, but youth remains young until the age of 40. So this time clock that kicks at the age of 60 is trying to communicate something very important. It's trying to communicate the notion that when you flip on the other side of the age of 60, you're out of excuses. You're done. You can't claim you don't know, you can't claim you haven't tried, you can't claim you just don't know where you're going. So it's time to get very serious, is what the purpose of this particular hadith is, to catch up on hopefully the good, to double down on the things that were done terrific, and to continue to evolve towards meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best state and in the best condition. I love the saying, which is in terms of imagery, incredibly poetic and powerful, of Hassan al-Basri, who said the following thing, and I'll quote him verbatim, and then inshallah ta'ala will translate. He says, يَبْنَ Adam, O you son of Adam, إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ أَيَّامٍ, you are but a handful of days. Son of Adam, when you look at who you are a collection of days, you are just a handful of days. فَإِذَا ذَهَبَ يَوْمٍ, when one of your days are emptied from the vessel, ذَهَبَ بَعْضُكَ, some of you is gone. I find this pretty amazing. I'm always a poet at heart, so when I see people who are able to pack wisdom in such language, it sort of arouses some wonderful things inside me to realize that the eloquence of our scholars can speak in this language and communicate such powerful ideas so beautifully. Many of you, I don't know, movie goers or movie buffs or whatever, you might have come across this idea that revolutionized the game of baseball. It's a movie that was rendered by a number of actors under the title called Moneyball. And the movie summarizes an extraordinary idea. The game of baseball up until that time, which was not a long time ago, was that what you do in order to win, you basically hire star players. And out comes the Oakland team that did not have the budget to afford star players. And the way they went after the problem is to buy wins, strikes, shortstops, catches So they bought the assets with which you win. They didn't simply win the season, they revolutionized the entire game. This is exactly what Hassan al-Basri is saying. You can think about your constituents as a human being as being star players. I'm awesome, I'm great, I'm the best. You can think about yourself that way. God bless you. Go right ahead. There's another alternative to think about yourself. You can think about yourself as a vessel that contains a treasure. That treasure happens to be time. There is only one funny rule about that game. Every time you lose a day, you don't get it back. What are you going to do the rest of your life then? That requires some thinking. That's the point that Hassan al-Basri is trying to make. And so inshallah, we will unpack that point for us. In the language of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Inshiqaq, which is Surah number 84, verse number 6, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الإنسان, O mankind, إنك كادح إلى ربك. Indeed, you are laboring to meet your Lord. كدحا, for what purpose? فملاقيه. You're striving, you're working all of this in order to come to the climax of the relationship between the Creator and the created. And what's the climax of that relationship is when the two of you meet. What are you bringing to the table on that day? What are you going to come with? There is one answer that seems to be highly popular amongst people. It's not my problem, I don't care. I don't think that's the answer of the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ, for certain, and it's clearly not the guidance of how we should live our lives as Muslims, because that's a question that is very pertinent to us. And what is it pertinent in is we want to meet Allah with our ideal self, not our broken self. So that's an important decision that will inform all of our lives and what we do with our lives. And there are those that feel that they are entitled, so they take shortcuts. I still have time, I can fix that some later date, don't worry about this, we'll take, like, it's a white lie, it's a shortcut, it's whatever it is, that are justifications in order to get ahead into the rat race of the modern world. The Quran puts in another invitation in front of us, another idea to ponder and to reflect on for those who might be tempted by that particular way of going there. It's like when you get a lot of people that are in high school or they don't have maybe an inclination to like sciences, mathematics, or chemistry or something else. They keep like nagging their parents all the time. Why am I taking this? I mean, I don't need it. I will never need it in my life. So I just need a shortcut. I need to get to where I need to get. So you see that that's almost like our predisposition to behave that way. So the Quran comes in and gently puts in front of us a reminder in order to think about it. And that comes to us from Surah Al-Baqarah on verse 48, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the following thing. وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا, fear a day. So it's getting serious already as the verse opens up. لا تجزي نفس عن نفس شيئا. That would be a day in which you cannot go to your reserve account or call upon your mom and your husband and your wife and all of the people that are part of your entourage that have been around you, that whenever you drop stuff, they pick it up for you. Because they want you to succeed. They're always there for you. Your support network. And today, if you think about how some of the children are raised, it's absolutely unbelievable. You need a coach and a therapist and an inspirational leader and a model and I don't know what. By the time you raise a child, you need an entire tribe to kind of work for that objective. And here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invites us to say, you know, that's a good recipe for here, but when you come in front of me, be careful of not thinking that that's something you can go. And then he says, وَلَا يُقْبَلُ مِنْهَا شَفَاعَةً. And it's a time at that time when you cannot just toss in an entitlement for intercession. وَلَا يُؤْخَذُ مِنْهَا عَدْلٌ وَلَا هُمْ يُحْزَنُونَ. And no injustice will be done to you. And so be careful when you prepare for that journey. So one of the critical things, and this is where I connect back to where I started in my introduction, which is my thesis for today, I would argue that the purpose of sacred time is to lift the fog in order to refocus and redirect our energy on what is the priority in life. So it's okay to veer off track. It's not okay to leave the orbit and you just go. It's an idea of being gently redirected and break the near. One of the greatest and most amazing skills of teachers, prophets, spiritual leaders, and people who have your best interest in mind is that nudging that they have in order to bring you back on the main track. There's a fantastic linguist that wrote a book once, and I think she did her PhD on the thing, and then she lives in the UK. And they did the following study. They went to hotels that put for you a little sign to make you environmentally conscious. And they say, please reuse the towels because you'll cut down on wastage if you reuse the towels. And then they measured participation. I can't remember the number, I think it was in the 23%. Then somebody had the bright idea of going to that notice and they changed it. It said, I can't remember exactly what the number is, the people who used this room before you reused the towels. The percentage jumped from 23% to 48% of people who have reused the towels. And she was very intrigued. Why is that? It's the same message. What's different? The second one was personalized. So that's why when the Quran speaks, Ya ayyuhan nas, Ya ayyuhal mu'minun, it calls upon you with the name Ya. I'm talking to you, it's personalized. It's something that tries to invite so you don't feel that you are suffering from being excluded. It's designed for inclusiveness and for participation. So the Prophet ﷺ comes to us for the month of Sha'ban, for the sacred time, and he said, and I love this hadith, it's absolutely brilliant in terms of inclusiveness. The Prophet ﷺ said, ذَلِكَ شَهْرٌ يَغْفُلُ عَنْهُ النَّاسِ. It's a month in the time of the Islamic calendar that people neglect. Why? بين رجب ورمضان. It's like it's a little valley, this month of Sha'ban. It's a little valley, the sacred month of the Muslim calendar. It's a little valley between two mountains that are giant. The month of Rajab, in which the event of Al-Isra and Mi'raj took place, and the month of Ramadan. So typically what we do is we go up, then we go all the way down, and then we come up for air again in Ramadan. And so the Prophet ﷺ says, let me share with you an issue about this neglectful stance. And that's the amazing gift of teachers, is you get invited to realize, oops, I took my eyes off the ball. Let me just put them back in and pay some attention to what I'm supposed to do. So why is it important? It's important because in this particular month, the Prophet ﷺ says, think of it as being a month that has these two bookends. I'm going to quote the words that he used to describe that. هُوَ شَهْرٌ. It is a month. تُرْفَعُ فِيهِ الْأَعْمَالِ. Your deeds for the year get presented in the presence of the Creator, in Allah. And then he said, as is the case with the most fantastic teachers always, they are not like modern generals that run their armies from an operational centers. They lead from the front. They come to the front, and they are the ones that put themselves in harm's way. So he said, أحب أن يرفع عملي وأنا صائم. And I love that when my deeds are presented in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I am in a state of fasting. And this is why it was reported that in the month of Sha'ban, the Prophet ﷺ fasted more than any other month, etc., etc. You all know, obviously, about the middle of Sha'ban, which is the month that is in the middle, the day that is in the middle of the entire month, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala collects and gathers all of these deeds to him in order to render an opinion on them. And obviously, as he does that, we are invited to fast during the day and pray at night some supererogatory prayers in order for us to present in that condition. And what I find very interesting in the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ is that he solves an important problem. The problem of how we present ourselves to Allah. We have an entire educational system that is essentially built on the idea of three fundamental principles: filling you with content, imparting you with values. It does less of a job on the third one, which is to help you model those values as much as you can. Although some people take it upon themselves in order to help do that. But then there is another dimension which is very, very important, which we get into the vital skills of life. So for people who are hunting for jobs, they might go to an HR coach or a recruiter or something like that, so they get coached on how they can land the job and be more competitive in the marketplace. So they review your resume, they'll coach you on how you answer questions. Actually, they will coach you on what not to say because you can hurt yourself, and you have all kinds of pieces of advice that get given to you. The purpose of which is to functionally position you so you can become successful at the endeavor that you are following. I call that they are trying to improve your stance, your condition. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, through this teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, that when you want to present yourself in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you don't improve your stance. You don't improve your image. You improve your state, your condition. So the Prophet ﷺ says, I prefer, in fact, the term that he used is love. I love that when my case is presented in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I am in a state of fasting. That's a state. That's not an assumed identity. That's not a rehearsal for the job interview. That's not going in front of your boss and making the case, hey, what's up? Last year, my performance has been phenomenal. Here is the proof. Like 150 KPIs that I did well. So where's the promotion? It's not about that. It's about this condition. This thing that is very intimate, very personal, deeply private, that we bring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and improve our condition. The Prophet ﷺ advises us that the container, the starting point for making that successful is you need to be in a state of fasting. I think that's pretty phenomenal in terms of a piece of advice. But he doesn't stop there, as he always does, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. His teaching is like a gift that keeps on giving. He shares with us another hadith about the month of Sha'ban. The Prophet ﷺ says, in the middle of this month, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَيَطَّلِعُ لَيْلَةَ النِّصْفِ مِنْ شَعْبَانَ. On the 15th night of the month of Sha'ban, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, if you wish, pay particular attention to that night, waiting for people who are coming to him in that state in order for them to have their pleas accepted with him. And then he says the following thing, فَيَغْفِرُ بِجَمِيعِ الْخَلَقِ. Whoever comes to Allah and says, I come to you because I need help, I come to you because I'm broken and I need you to heal me, or I come to you because I'm trying to improve and I need a boost to get to the next level, or I come to you to fix my faith, or to fix my family, or to fix my environment, or to do whatever it is. When you come to him, you find that your prayer is fulfilled. then the Prophet ﷺ says the following thing: except, illa. There's an exception to that rule when people come to present their cases to him. Mushrikin or mushahinin. There will be two categories of people. We can, just to be politically correct, we're going to call these profiles. There will be two profiles. Then when these profiles get presented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will take exception in terms of being generous to them. So what are these two profiles? The first one is the mushrik, the person who associates other deities with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I know that there is an entire discourse in the Muslim community that is highly reductive on what that term means. Very quickly, people take this particular term of shirk, association with Allah, turn it immediately to a theological argument and make it a litmus test to keep someone in the faith or throw someone out of the faith. That's not my position. So I'll be very clear. So I'm going to unpack it in another dimension. So why is the Prophet ﷺ bringing this teaching to us? He's worried about taking away our eyes from worshiping God to worshiping self-made idols. With the term worshiping here doesn't mean that we bow and prostrate and pray and whatnot. It means that we take our attention off and we get distracted by other things. The love of consumables. What's the next big thing I should be buying? The love of always coveting what the others have. What is it? Why is it that he or she or so and so has and I don't? It becomes worship, it becomes debilitating. People do not seem to be able to come out of it, and they come and whinge because it informs their entire life about the fact that it's not me, it's about that. I'm going to betray something of my sort of pet peeves that I like, because I sometimes can't remember the names, but I remember some guy who one day was tossed out from a rock band from California, I believe it was Metallica. And then when he was tossed out, he spent his entire life completely disoriented. He founded a rival band. It became almost as famous as Metallica. Was never enough. He stayed miserable for the rest of his life. Why? It's because you keep measuring to something that is supposedly the must-have, and you forget your blessings. You can't even see what has been given to you right in front of you. And in some sense, that's a form of idolatry that we are concerned about here. And then the Prophet ﷺ advises of the second profile, infinitely more dangerous, infinitely more insidious, and infinitely more stealth, because we don't pay attention to it. وَمُشَاحِنٍ. So what is this mushahin that the Prophet ﷺ says on the 15th of Rajab, when in front to Sha'ban, when we get presented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this person is excluded from the blessings of Allah, and Allah doesn't accept their pleas. So what is it that you have to do that is as horrible, so Allah doesn't accept your plea? And mushahin is the person, I believe that the English proper word for this is called wadin, W-A-D-I-N-G, and that is when you have grievances, you don't address them, you pack them, they fill you with rage and anger, and you become totally consumed with whatever harm was done to you. So you can't forgive, you are always thinking of getting back to the person who did something to you, you're always on the lookout on how to get even, and you have all of these things. I love the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seemed to have taken this particular disease of the heart and put it on par with the disease of idolatry. That's a very, very insightful idea about the toxicity of the idea of not, now I'm going to put it in modern terms, of the idea of the lack of skill of letting go. Let go of it. It's consuming you, it's destroying you, it's not helping you, it's eating up your life, your environment, your future. Everything that is good about you is being eaten by this vice, which is, he harmed me, she harmed me. So we can't, so there is this utterly consuming idea that takes you from everywhere else. And the notion is to just let it go. And you will be liberated, you will be free. You'll come reborn again to do something very special about it. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ left with us as advice. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فيغفر المستغفرين. الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى اله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. اما بعد. We have received a special request from Sister Dala, who has requested dua for her daughter and other matters in her life. I want to say this because I think this is really important. And this is not meant to be the next khutbah after the first one. It's just a quick reminder that's very important to me personally. I think that when we hear of somebody who asks us for dua, always think about two things. Next time it could be my turn. Put that in your mind, put that in your eyes. And the second thing you need to think about is we have been asked to be privileged. It's not that we are given charity, to be privileged to be part of supplication on behalf of somebody else. When my time will come to be sick, I'll be coming to you to ask for healing. When my time will come to say goodbye, I will come to you to pray for my service to go and meet my Maker. So I take very seriously these requests, and what I'd like to see every time that we make a dua for somebody who comes to us, they are coming to us not because they can get it done, they are coming to us because they think that our power of healing, when we intercede to Allah, can make their lives better. They deserve that we give them that. So please keep that in mind every time we make dua for a brother, a sister, a son, a daughter, or whoever asks us for this. اللهم رب الناس اذهب البأس اشفي انت الشافي شفاء لا يغادر سقما ابدا. اللهم رب الناس اذهب البأس اشفي انت الشافي شفاء لا يغادر سقما ابدا. اللهم رب الناس اذهب البأس اشفي انت الشافي شفاء لا يغادر سقما ابدا. اللهم اشفها وعافها واعف عنها. اللهم اشفها وشافها واعف عنها. اللهم اشفي بنتها. Oh Allah, we ask that also on this occasion that you heal each and every one of us who's sick, that you heal our families, that you heal our loved ones, and you heal all of us. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا دينا إلا قضيته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا مبتلا إلا عافيته ولا ضالا إلا هديته ولا غائبا إلا رددته ولا مظلوما إلا نصرته ولا أسيرا إلا فككته ولا ميتا إلا رحمته. عباد الله، أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة وقد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
You are ready at the back, inshallah. Just give me a signal that we are straight and ready to go. Good, thank you. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين.